Stephen King says, Let Me In is a genre-busting triumph. Not just a horror film, but the best American horror film in the last 20 years. Let Me In is not an American horror film. This is a near shot-for-shot American horror standardized knockoff of a Swedish horror film, Låt den rätte komma in, based on the Swedish book of the same name, which itself was inspired by a Morrissey song. It was decided that the original film would be remade when it was still on the festival circuit before ever getting an official release.
Why was Let the Right One In remade only 2 years after its original release?
Is it because American audiences are so averse to subtitles? Is it because the director felt audiences would not appreciate the subtlety? Was it because the new director wanted to steal the credit away from the original director? Is it because this was the only way anyone could make a substantial amount of money off of somebody else's property?
This video will continue assuming you have seen either Let the Right One In or the American Horror Standardized remake, Let Me In. If you're the kind of person who doesn't like to watch foreign films because you don't want to, quote, read a movie.
I love that joke. Every time someone makes it up themselves, it's hilarious.
Then Let Me In was made for you, and may you be happy together far away from us. All others should proceed immediately to your favorite retailer and purchase Let the Right One In.
If you haven't seen one of the two, stop watching. What Matt Reeves has done in creating Let Me In is taken a thoughtful, understated love story with a dark streak, and repackaged it as a horror movie for what he thinks is a simple-minded audience lacking the power of inference.
I don't have infravision.
No, inference, like you infer things from the visual cues and dialogue and stuff.
Oh, so like I don't need things to be spelled out for me like you're doing right now?
No, whatever. I'm not doing that.
Ironically, the two movies are exact opposites of each other, despite telling the same story. Everything about the remake is opposite, right down to the kid's hair color. Even the shot composition is mirrored. Look, same shots, but opposite.
Oh no, see, he's not copying. It's different.
Reeves is trying to trick you into thinking he's not copying the original shot for shot for shot. He even goes so far as to invert the color on the credits sequence. The hallmark of American popcorn movies is lack of subtlety, and Let Me In is not subtle. It constantly reminds you of what you're supposed to be thinking, how you should feel, what's happening while it's happening, and basically includes everything that lets you know that a movie is taking place.
It's kind of like we're being treated like idiots. Characters say things we should be able to figure out ourselves.
Come on, look at this, it's really cool. We can talk to each other through the wall.
And we are shown every connection we're supposed to make on our own. Connections like Abby's caretaker having been with her for a long time, and how she's good at solving Rubik's Cubes because she tells us she's good at puzzles and has an ancient wooden version of a Rubik's Cube of her own. Where Ellie merely shows Oscar her Fabergé puzzle egg to prove she doesn't need money. We infer that she's able to put it back together with our vision.
The vampire aspect of the original movie was done with minimal special effects, choosing real life whenever possible.
Well, it obviously wasn't possible to do this for reals.
So naturally, the remake was done with Hollywood budget CG effects. The more money you spend, the less believable it is, as you can see right here. CG rubber people are the norm for American standardized horror, which was why the original's effects were so refreshing.
The CG might have helped in the scene where they pushed the mannequin out the window.
Here's a good example of an effect done right and then gone wrong. The scene where the nurse runs out looking for Ellie and then, whoa!
Oh god!
She was there the whole time!
Oh god!
Versus, they cut first, and then they turn out a light to draw your eye.
They gotta make sure you see all that money they spent. Ellie's shoelessness in this scene is supposed to indicate that she either forgot or didn't care to put her shoes on to maintain the appearance of normality. Subtle. This is now shot after shot constant reminders that Abby is shoeless in the snow and she doesn't care who knows it, starting from the moment she shows up on screen.
She's not wearing shoes? I didn't even notice that 7 times.
Sometimes the blatancy gets in the way of the horror. When Hakan is out looking for victims, it's like, Halatane? What's a Halatane? Oh my god, he's knocking that kid out. Now he's stringing that kid up. Oh my god, what's he gonna do next? It was all the more horrifying because of his nonchalant way of going about it. Versus plastic bag mask, back of somebody else's car. He's up to no good. It takes the shock out of his actions when we already have an idea of what he's planning before he gets to it.
The eye hole gives it all away.
Put straight, awesome and terrifying, retarded. Isn't it scarier when people don't wear masks to advertise that they're deranged?
The movie starts with a flash-forward scene in which the revelation of what Hakan was doing to his face and what happens to him in the hospital is spoiled. This scene is only there because of the non-linear narrative trend that so many mainstream movies are following. This technique is used because the director feels that the audience needs some motive to continue watching, because he did not feel that the movie would be compelling enough to keep people interested. It is a gimmick to create false interestingness. The question of whether or not Ellie's cover will be blown after Hakan is captured is erased. Oh, well, we already know he dies before they can get anything out of him, so that's fine. No problems there.
We really wish movies would stop doing this.
Hey, by the way, did you know it was the 80s? You can tell by the date. And the Reagan.
Why is it the 80s?
No idea. The time period is not important. The story can be and has already been told without indication of in what year in which it is taking place in inside of the year. Constant reminders of the year are another gimmick to distract you by playing on your capacity for time frame recognition.
I remember that from the 80s. That's relevant to me. Matt Reeves must have thought that if his movie hadn't taken place in the 80s, his audience would wonder why everyone wasn't whipping out their cell phones every 5 seconds. But Matt Reeves' target audience wouldn't have noticed, because they were all staring at their cell phones. Let the Right One In's lead performances are outstanding, especially considering the ages of the young actors. Ellie's character, being hundreds of years old, is supposed to appear wise beyond her years, and Lena Leanderson pulls this off effectively. As her character arc plays out, she goes from awkward and standoffish to playful and childlike as she slowly remembers what it's like to be a 12-year-old. Kåre Hedebrandt gives a strong performance as the lonely kid with a quiet dark side, haunted by depression and brief moments of lashing out followed by morbid satisfaction. He plays it so well you can just feel that his character could be on the way to multiple homicide. The supporting roles are all well cast and performed and serve their purposes,
including cameos by Sigourney Weaver and Keanu Reeves.
But it's the two leads that have to carry the movie, and they do.
Adversely, Cody Smith-McPhee and Chloe Grace Moretz's performances do not fill out their sizable roles in which they were placed, nor do they live up to their predecessors. It's not their fault. We've seen them in other movies and we're sure they could do better. It's the fault of the director and his creative decisions that resulted in Abby being spacey and monotone for the whole movie. The character has no arc, no meaning, no purpose.
Look, can't we just keep things the way they are? I need blood to live. I guess I could have one. Jordan, do you like me? I'm looking for my father. I've been told for a very long time.
Matt Reeves' decision to remove all emotion from the character for the duration of the movie results in the breaking down of plot development. Owen, on the other hand, does convey some emotion, but it's the wrong kind. His character arc plays out backwards to the original. Well, we'll get to that in a minute.
The performances of the original kids endeared us to them and made us care about what was happening to them and what would happen to them. We don't care about the characters in Let Me In quite as much.
Actually, we just don't.
And so, the warm color palette is a cheap attempt to make the movie more inviting, and thereby make us care about the characters through the use of deception and artifice. Contrast this with the original's ability to make us genuinely feel for its characters despite the cold and very uninviting look of the film. This is a testament to the skill of the filmmakers to draw us in when we should be pushed away. And what's the reason we're drawn to one and not the other?
Mark Kermode put it best.
Let the Right One In is a film about kids that happens to feature vampires. Let Me In is a film about vampires that just happens to feature kids.
We'll elaborate a bit and say one is about two kids who are unhappy with their lives and don't fit in, but in meeting each other find meaning and purpose.
Hence the title.
The other is about a vampire who finds an unwitting victim to do her dirty work so she won't get caught. It's the primary focus of each movie that shows the biggest difference between the two.
Put another way, it's nature versus nurture, and in this way the movies are opposite each other. The original story is about each character's nature. Ellie, despite her vampirism, is by nature a good person. She regrets having been made a vampire and feels remorse over the deaths of her victims. This is the reason she needs a caretaker, someone to kill for her so that she won't have to face the guilt. Oscar, despite outward appearances, is by nature an evil person. Not on the same level of his bullies, they won't go much further than they already have. The only other person in the film that is as bad as Oscar is Connie's brother, Jimmy, who is the only one willing to continue when things start going too far. The others, even Connie, are somewhat good and have a conscience. But Oscar is bad on a much deeper level that has only just started developing. Over the course of the movie, Oscar becomes more in tune with this darker side of himself. He keeps a notebook full of newspaper clippings about killings and gets disturbing satisfaction from causing severe injury. By the end, he's ready to take full responsibility as Ellie's caretaker.
The two were made for each other, both fitting the other's needs, and so they form a connection that is deeper than convenience. All this information about their natures is conveyed most effectively in a scene that does not appear in the remake. This also happens to be our favorite scene.
Vad glor du på? Va? Är det mig du glor på? Skrik då! Skrik! Det var det första jag hörde dig säga.
Jag dödar inte folk.
Nej. Men du skulle vilja. Om du kunde. för att hämnas. Eller hur?
Jo.
Och ska jag göra det för att jag måste? Bli mig lite. Snälla Oscar. Bli mig lite.
Was this scene cut because Matt Reeves didn't understand its purpose, or did he know full well the scene didn't fit his characters? The entire reason the scene no longer fits in the remake is because the theme has changed. Good and evil play heavily in the original, while the remake teaches us that evil is just a fool notion born of religion and superstition.
Can people be evil?
Where are you getting all this stuff? Is this from your mother? All the religious crap?
It's the nurture concept, where antisocial behavior is brought about by bad parenting and substandard living conditions. In this world, children are driven to depression by parents who don't care about them, bullies are driven to bully only because they are bullied themselves, and vampires are bad because they're vampires.
Abby's a vampire. Vampires are bad. Unlike Ellie, Abby feels no remorse after defeating her victims and taking off into the night. But she sucks at it, so she needs an unwitting pawn to do it for her. This is Abby's motive, to find a replacement for her uncooperative, clumsy loser of an accomplice. She seeks out the most pathetic, lonely little kids she can find and lures them in by throwing them a little attention. Look, Abby is the only one making all the moves, trying to seduce Owen, who frankly doesn't seem all that interested.
Pac-Man and Culture Club? That's relevant to me.
In the original, Oscar's the one trying to start the relationship, in the way kids would, with an initially disinterested, wise beyond her years Ellie. Ellie is like this at first because she knows how their relationship will probably end up. Abby's statements that she and Owen can't be friends are incongruous with her intentions.
Hey, no shoes.
Is it reverse psychology? Or did the director not understand the question?
Owen's parents don't love him. Well, you can tell because they never show his mom's face and he never sees his dad. It's because they're getting a divorce.
My mom and dad are getting a divorce.
Yeah, Owen, thank you. I got that much. You didn't have to tell me. Because of the divorce...
They're getting a divorce?
Yes.
My mom and dad are getting a divorce.
It really looks like Owen's trying to form a bond with Abby based on having bad parents in common. This is squashed later on when Abby reveals that Bagman is really not her father, and that effectively severs the only tie Owen had to Abby. Because of the divorce...
They're getting
Mom
divorced!
and dad are getting a divorce.
Owen doesn't have any friends and holes himself up in his room, spying on his neighbors and acting like a psychopath. But not a real psychopath. He doesn't have the predisposition. No collection of articles about murder here. See, Owen wishes he were evil because he's sad about being thrown around like a rag doll all the time. Oscar wishes it wasn't illegal to kill the kids who make fun of him. And Oscar doesn't need bad parents to be evil.
On the contrary, Oscar has a very good relationship with both his parents. He brushes his teeth with his mom, who is fussy and overprotective, and visits Daddy Keanu every weekend. He goes bad in spite of all that because of his nature. Of course, these father scenes had to be cut, so they were replaced with a corny, "Someday I'm getting out of this town" scene.
Someday I'm gonna get out, and I'll never come back.
Owen's character arc plays out backwards. He starts off like he's going to turn out wrong, but actually becomes weaker in spirit, becoming a Nancy when he hits the bully in the ear, and he's finally reduced to a Sally in the face of true evil.
Oh my god! Oh no! I can't believe what I'm seeing! Oh, she's ripping him apart! It looks painful! Oh, it probably hurts! Oh, is that tomato juice? Oh no, it's not tomato juice! I'm so scared right now! Oh, I want my mommy! My mommy hates me! And my dad hates me too! Everyone hates me and I wanna cry! I wanna cry! And then cries like a baby with his hands over his ears.
At this point, his character shouldn't have any desire to stick it out with Abby, having already expressed his distaste for evil.
There's such a thing as evil?
and yet he ends up running away with the monster he's afraid of. Their original connection is missing, so this part of the plot makes no sense and shows that the director was copying from the original without actually knowing what was happening on screen.
This scene was supposed to be Oscar's pivotal scene where he's faced with committing murder. He pulls his knife and steels himself to attack, but is interrupted when Locke goes for the window. Whoa, hey! Whoa, you kind of surprised me there. That's cool. You know, you can take care of this. You know, I don't have to murder you. I'll close the door just for a little privacy. You know, you have fun in there. You know, I'll go into this hall for a little bit and chew his guts out. Matt Reeves is confusing Oscar's relief for not having to go through with his first murder for fear and disgust over what Ellie is doing.
There are many examples of the differences in nature between the characters. The scene where Oscar teases Ellie into entering without an invite because he wants to see what happens. Where Abby enters of her own accord to show Owen what happens, I guess as a way to gain sympathy. It works. Oscar lies about the switch mark so his mom won't bother him with her worrying. Owen lies because he's bullied into it.
She's not going to tell her mom on us, is she? She fell down on the playground, that's all, right? Right?
Abby suggests Owen use the knife against the bullies, where Ellie only recommends a good hard punch. When Ellie offers Oscar the money she's collected from her caretakers over the years, he stands up to her and asserts himself to get past in a show of superiority. She lets him go, but regards him with a mature, knowing look as he leaves. When Owen discovers the blatant evidence of Abby's caretaker exchange program, he puts on a tough exterior to try to escape. She responds with an unfitting,
I told you we couldn't be friends.
which is profoundly confusing in the scheme of things. And finally, Oscar's happiness that Ellie returned, coupled with her keeping eye contact with him to kind of shield him from the carnage all around. Versus Owen's complete breakdown at all the violence happening around him, followed by the sad cowering he does when he's looking up at what we assume is Abby. They don't actually show her.
The character Hakan plays an important role in Ellie's character arc. Ellie has been trying to find someone that can help her and that she actually loves. You can tell that Ellie was trying to form with Hakan the same emotional connection she does with Oscar, though Hakan's feelings for Ellie are unrequited. Hakan is not cut out for what he does for Ellie, but he tries his best out of love. While he faces the shame of returning home without blood, you can tell he actually really feels bad about it. Bagman feels differently.
Maybe I'm getting sloppy. Maybe I want to get caught. Maybe I'm just tired of this.
He constantly shows resentment for what he has to do for Abby. There is little connection beyond a father and daughter relationship, and even this is too much considering Bagman is just Abby's last victim. The nature of the relationship between the two in both movies is most apparent in one particular scene. Hakan is going through his routine, you know, getting ready to go out to get Ellie some sweet, sweet people juice, because he wants to. Hakan tells Ellie he doesn't want her to see Oscar anymore, that he doesn't want to be replaced. Ellie responds by showing him some affection, but they both know how it'll eventually work out. Hakan relishes the moment.
The order in which all this happens is extremely important. Otherwise, it ends up like this. Bagman is grudgingly shoving everything into his bag when Abby asks him,
You going out?
Is there a choice?
Abby shows him some affection to try to coerce him, but when he asks her not to see Owen anymore, she withdraws to show him how things are going to be around here. It's exactly the opposite in every way. There used to be an entire B story about the repercussions of Ellie's actions that explored the concept of good and evil even more.
Replaced with what?
A B story about a cop looking for members of a satanic cult.
No!
Ellie's first victim, Yokke, was part of a group of close friends that mourned his death. His best friend, Lake, cannot get over it and eventually drives away his girlfriend, Virginia. She ends up an unfortunate victim as Ellie loses control over the sight of Oscar's delicious vampire bait. Then there was a bunch of scenes detailing her transformation into being a vampire, at the end of which she decides not to become a killer, asks the orderly to open the blinds, and chooses death. Lake, distraught with the grief of losing two of his closest friends, seeks out Ellie to get his revenge.
Let Me In replaces all of this with some incomprehensible story of a cop investigating something about Satanists. Abby loses control because of Owen's savory plasma syrup and attacks some random stranger. Later, she's suddenly in the hospital trying to chew out her own blood transfusion when an oblivious nurse walks on by. I'm just opening the window. And accidentally kills her in a glorious spectacle of flames and terror. The cop somehow connects this to Abby's apartment, so he knocks on the door, and he's about to walk away when he hears the floor creak. And then, what are you doing? Breaking and entering? No warrant? Brandishing a weapon? Unlawful search and seizure? He doesn't even know what he's looking for, or if it's gonna be in there.
So it's gone from a revenge story that interferes with Ellie and Oscar's love story, resulting in tragedy, to something about a cult and an idiot cop who doesn't really know what he's doing, stumbling into a heartless monster's lair. You may have armed yourself with the argument that the remake is based on the book, and so that's why there are differences. Well, you'd be wrong. Not only do the book and the original movie follow the same story and theme, but there isn't a single scene from the book that appears in Let Me In that didn't also appear in Let the Right One In. Matt Reeves put in a couple clever nods to the book, trying to trick you into thinking he used it, but it's clear he just followed the movies scene by scene and didn't take anything substantial from the book.
What he did take was trivial, like Owen stashing candy wrappers for no reason. In the book, he stole the candy and doesn't want his mom to find out. In the remake, he pays for them.
Hey, remember when 20s looked like that? That's relevant to me.
In the book, Oscar likes to listen to Kiss, and at some point Ellie ends up with a discarded Iron Maiden shirt, and so Abby shows up wearing a Kiss shirt. Whatever. There is one part of the book and original that the remake leaves out, and maybe for the better.
The book reveals that Ellie was formerly Elias, but a rich, foppish vampire of the Victorian era cut off his dinky and slurped it up with some cocktail sauce. This is ambiguously revealed in the film when Oscar sneaks a peek at Ellie changing.
The remake may have done well to leave this out, but they didn't remove the scene altogether, so we still have an out-of-place shot with Owen creepily spying on Abby. But that's the only thing that's okay. Every other second of the remake is an outrage for even existing!
The director of Let the Right One In, Thomas Alfredson, hated the idea that his movie was being remade. Remakes should be made of movies that aren't very good. That gives you the chance to fix whatever has gone wrong. What was wrong with Let the Right One In?
Nothing. So don't let me in! Don't ever let me in!
Låt den rätta komma in is one of the best movies ever made, without exaggeration. It has earned its place in the Twin Perfect Essential Viewing Collection, a list of movies we think should set the standard in quality for all movies henceforth.
All of the movies in our collection are of the little-known or underappreciated variety, and they are all equally mind-blasting. So if Let the Right One In is how we're starting it off, just imagine what other masterpieces of wit and whimsy we have waiting to whisk you away to regions unknown and beyond, on into the cosmos and through the vast expanses of time and comprehension!
You make it sound pretty good. I can't wait to find out. Seriously though, Let Me In sucks!
We, the team that worked on this film, and I was blessed to be part of a great team, are so proud of this movie. It's completely original. It's in a sense a grown-up film, an intelligent film, but also a very entertaining movie, and we can't wait to have people see it.